Okay. It is now my pleasure and single honor to invite the guest of honor, Dr. Oluoch, to come and give his remarks. Makofi kwake. Karibu, karibu, karibu daktari.
Thank you. First and foremost, to the board of management, the teachers of this great institution, the chief executive officer and principal of Migori TTC, our graduates of today, parents, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Good afternoon once again. To the governor of this great county and his team, I want to take this opportunity to thank God for enabling us to gather in this institution on this day. Like you all know, gatherings such as this have been a rare privilege since the year 2020 because of the pandemic that came globally and to a large extent hindered participation or group activities such as this. And to that extent, we are eternally grateful to God for keeping this country and for pushing us through that wave of pandemic to even allow us today, 1st of April 2022, to have a sitting of this magnitude. We don't take it for granted. Secondly, allow me to convey the apologies of my CEO, Madam Dr. Agnes Mercy Wahome. She is the Chief Executive Officer of the Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Service, which some of you call KUPS. Because of exigencies of work, she is out of the country and requested me to come and represent her in this function where she is the chief guest. Maybe some of you are hearing about KUPS for the first time, and therefore it would be unkind of me not to elaborate or to educate those of you who are hearing about it for the first time about its mandate and what it does. The Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Service is a government agency established by the Universities Act 2012. Among other things, it was established to coordinate the placement of government-sponsored students to universities, colleges, TVET institutions, TTCs, institutions of training under respective ministries of government, and so on. And since 2013, we have dutifully done that activity by placing students under government sponsorship to public and private universities, which are 72 in number, TVET institutions, which are 192 in number, TTCs, which are 32 in number for primary teacher education and 3 in number for secondary teacher education, and also in training institutions that are under respective government ministries. You might be aware, nearly all government ministries outside the Ministry of Education also run training institutions, whether it is a Railway Training Institute under Ministry of Transport, or the one in Kakamega is called the Bukura Agricultural Training College under Ministry of Agriculture, and so on and so forth. Very many ministries of government have colleges where KUPS places students. The other activity that KUPS does is to develop and implement career guidance activities for the benefit of students and teachers of this country. We have 10,500 secondary schools, which also have principals and career guidance teachers. These are the officers in these schools who are supposed to guide students in terms of the opportunities that are available in universities and colleges, in terms of the subject combination and requirements and performance that they are required to have so that they can pursue respective programs, degrees, certificates, artisan courses, diplomas, and so on. We also have the responsibility to collect and collate and disseminate information to the government and the Republic of Kenya on matters pertaining to placement and career development of our students. And this is a very special activity, Your Excellency, Governor, because we are witnessing today the passage of a people who chose a profession or a career that has been historically and philosophically been referred to as a noble profession. I happen to be one of them because my first degree was in education. I trained as a teacher of English and literature at Moi University in the 90s. And since then, I've considered and still consider myself to be a teacher, because once a teacher, always. Thank you. So opportunities like this are very, very important, because it has taken a lot of people, a lot of time, and a lot of resources to have you sitting here today and putting on that gown. The country has invested so heavily in you. Your parents have invested so heavily in you, your family, and everyone, including the teachers who molded you to what you are today. And as you move to that new responsibility, we want to congratulate you. We want to congratulate the college and its administration and management, and we want to thank God for making this a reality. Let me talk about transition. This is government policy, like you all know. We transit because life in itself is a manifestation of transition. When you are born as a toddler, you transit from the stage of being a toddler to walking around, to stumbling around, to running around, to adulthood, young adult, middle adult, and senior citizen. So life itself is a transition, and education and training too is a transition. You have heard the government, His Excellency the President, and the Minister in charge of education talk about transition in education. We transit from lower school to primary school 100%. We again transit from primary school to secondary school under the billions of resources that the government commits under free primary education. And then results for KCSE were released the other day. We expect that we are going to witness yet another round of transition from primary school to secondary school. But, Your Excellency, and all the members present, there is a problem with transition from from secondary schools to training institutions. And that is why the government and parliament of this country enacted the legislation that created the Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Service to aid in this final and most important transition period from high school to universities and colleges. Why do we talk about transition? And like I'd said, there are billions of shillings the government commits to free primary education. Yet another billions of shillings the government commits in free secondary education. The reason being is that as a youth, as a student, you have a moral responsibility to your country to develop it while you are alive. You have a moral obligation to do something to your country so that by the time you are out of it or you are gone, you leave it better than you found it. And it is in keeping with that morality and of that obligation that today we are talking of great people like the late John Henry Okwanyo, minister, because while he was alive, he had a duty to establish an educational institution in his community, which is now serving the entire country, and not his children or grandchildren alone, or his constituents as they were then. And so the government has put a lot of premium and a lot of resources on transition from secondary school to universities and colleges. The good thing, I heard the CEC for Education talk about 22,000 candidates who have today completed their KCSE examinations. The question is, where do they go after that? And in keeping with their obligation to develop their county, to develop their families, to develop themselves, what are they going to do? We want to encourage that all the leadership of this county do tracer studies, map out where, when results will come out in May, when the Minister for Education will release these results, we want to see 100% transition from this county into universities, into TVET institutions, into colleges, into TTCs, and so on. You can imagine getting 22,000 people to start a career, to start a profession, under government sponsorship. For universities, of course, we know there is a Higher Education Loans Board that gives students bursaries and loans to support their university education. For TVET institutions, we also know that the government has capped the fees at 56,000 per year, 30,000 of which is an automatic grant once you are admitted into a TVET institution under the Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Service, leaving you with a balance of 26,000 per year. And so if you have the capacity to pay the balance, well and good. If you do not have the capacity to pay that, we also have the nearly automatic loan of 30,000 from the Higher Education Loans Board, which makes transition from secondary school to TVET institutions almost free, because the government underwrites nearly all of it. Ladies and gentlemen, these are opportunities that we must all teach our people, enlighten our people to take advantage of, because nobody knows for sure how long they will be. But as long as they are there, we want to see 100% transition. We want to see the 22,000 students who have just written their KCSE exams transition from this county into the colleges and universities that we have mentioned. But of course for us, because we serve the entire country, we want to see the 1,031,000 students who have sat this exam transition to these colleges, because we have capacity, we have the resources, we have the manpower, and we have the facilities to make that possible. Are we together? Are we together, ladies and gentlemen? Can I see if you are together by show of hands? Thank you so much. So, ladies and gentlemen, and particularly our graduates, as you transit into the inside of another world, some people like to call it the outside world, but I can tell you it is not operating in isolation. It is really not an outside world. It is just the inside of another world. As you transit into that space, we want to pray to God to continue to keep you, to continue to bless you, to continue to empower and enlighten you, so that you can have your responsibilities that you will be taking today to discharge them with utmost distinction. I'm sure you have read that the best way to destroy a country is to destroy its education system. That is the best and the fastest way to destroy a country, not destroying its economy, not even electing poor leaders or incapable leaders. That also has its place. But the easiest, the quickest, the fastest way to destroy a country is to destroy its education system. Because out of it, you are going to get teachers who cannot teach, who cannot demonstrate, who cannot guide and mentor students. Because out of that destroyed education system, you are going to have accountants who cannot balance books. You are going to have engineers who cannot build a road. You are going to have electrical persons who cannot fit a bulb. You are going to have a nurse who cannot inject a patient. You are going to have a doctor who cannot diagnose an ailment. You are going to have a rotten, completely useless society. You are going to have economists who cannot do anything in central bank to make sure that our macroeconomic stability are functioning so that the economy grows. You are going to have no country. That leads me to invite you to re-examine yourself as a graduate. That you, having been trained, examined, and qualified, and being released today into this country to teach in any part of the country and indeed in any part of the world, I want you to once again reflect over that enormous responsibility that we are giving you today as a teacher, and to reflect on what kind of student would you want to teach. What kind of student would you want to pass through your hands? What kind of education, in terms of quality and relevance, would you want to impart on the generation of tomorrow as a teacher? That is a huge responsibility that today you have accepted to shoulder on behalf of all of us, and most importantly, on behalf of God and on behalf of your country. We require you to maintain professionalism and ethics in your career. We require you to maintain humanity, teaching with humanity in your career. Be compassionate, be considerate, be loving to the kind of students or pupils that are going to pass through your hands, so that one day, someday, like the Honorable MP said here, they will stand in front of gatherings and say, if it were not for Madam So-and-so, I would not be here. If it were not for Mr. So-and-so who taught me in primary school, I would not be standing in front of you today. And so I invite you once again to re-examine your responsibility and the huge expectations that this country has of you as a teacher, as a modeler, as a parent, as a mentor, and most importantly, as a caregiver. As you go, we will continue to pray for you, like I've said, but most importantly, keep in touch with your alma mater. Migori TTC has made you to be who you are. Never ever forget where you have come from. I believe you have a strong alumni network. If you don't, you are challenged to establish a very strong alumni network so that you can organize yourselves as alumni, come back to your college, whose breasts you circled to transform you into an ordinary person, into a professional that you are today. Talk about what you can do to the asbestos roofs as the alumni. Talk about what you can do in terms of motivating your teachers. Talk about and lecturers and tutors. Think about what you can do in terms of marketing your institution so that other people across the country can also come. We pray that God continues to nourish you, and we pray for sustenance, growth, and development of this great institution. May God bless you. Asanteni sana.
Can we appreciate once more? Thank you.
There's a choir that's
Yes.
supposed to come. We're calling them.
Yes. Now, we have a special item for His Excellency the Governor, Migori County. Most welcome, Mr. Charles Ojueke and your group. Come, come, come.